He looks like Jimmy Butler when he dribbles at the college level sometimes. Do you see that in him at all?
Meaning,
there's the move.
He's charging a lot for coffee while he dribbles.
All right. So speaking of draft prospects, let's start with that, because over the weekend you got to see the Big East tournament and the ACC tournament. What stood out the most from watching those tournaments? Because people are going to listen to this, and I think it could be instructive not only towards looking at prospects, but also maybe your thoughts when people are filling out their brackets, teams, players that really stood out to you from this.
The biggest thing, I mean, the academic calendar at Virginia is just so grueling that you could just tell that it just took them down a notch in this tournament, unfortunately. They scored 13 points in the first half against North Carolina, who isn't even good on defense.
At least you were there as a media member. You weren't wearing your Virginia jersey in the crowd, were you?
I wasn't, because I actually had it saved for the semis. I was I didn't want to bust it out too early. Ended up staying in the hotel closet. So anyway, I digress. ACC not as talented as it used to be, certainly. But Duke has 5 draftable players. So that was definitely the focus. Banchero, definitely a top 4 pick. I think he's pretty much a known quantity nationally at this point, right? Got a good look at AJ Griffin too, who's interesting physically. Like, he can really shoot, even though it's kind of a weird looking shot. It's a set shot. His feet are really wide apart. But he knocks that thing down. Not super elusive, like off the dribble or whatnot, but like a good body, like could almost play like a small ball 4 at times, I think. Like there are a few times guys tried to back him down, and they just got nowhere against him. So I think he's definitely a lottery pick. And then Wendell Moore Jr. I thought was a guy who was really interesting to me that I was trying to get a feel for. I wrote about him over the weekend because he's been kind of up and down at Duke. He's a junior now, but he's really talented. He's got long arms. He can jump. Pretty decent passer. I think he's a guy that a lot of teams in the 20s are going to be taking a long look at.
Yeah, Wendell Moore's type of guy that has that 3-and-D potential, as you wrote about on The Athletic. With AJ Griffin. I'm curious. You said Paolo Banchero, top 4. A lot of people consider him top 3. So the 2-part question here would be, who is that other guy that could bump Banchero down to 4 rather than the top 3? And with AJ Griffin, does he have a chance to propel himself into that conversation as well?
I can't see. I'll take the low hanging fruit first. I can't see Griffin, with his lack of shot creation, getting into that top 4. I just don't think there's enough ceiling there. I think he projects probably more as a role player than as like a big star kind of guy.
He looks like Jimmy Butler when he dribbles at the college level sometimes. Do you see that in him at all?
Meaning,
there's the move.
He's charging a lot for coffee while he dribbles.
Like you said, he's not a dynamic shot creator. Jimmy Butler's more like bullying opponents sometimes. But
Jimmy Butler could get into a pull up and rise up over everyone. Like, I just don't. Griffin had a lot of trouble, like just getting to pull ups and turnarounds and stuff. Like anything off the dribble, it's a low release point. He's not super explosive vertically. Like,
it looks difficult.
Exactly. So, he got a couple of them to go down, but you could tell like they were heavily contested. You think, okay, a pro probably gets a piece of that shot. So I would say probably no on him. With Banchero, I do wonder if Purdue's Jaden Ivey can be in that top 4. I just think he's so like he reminds me of Ja a lot of times with some of the things he does, and which is like there's only one Ja, so let's not get crazy. But he has that blast off quickness that I think is going to play really well at the NBA level. And Purdue's trying to post up on every play. The middle's crowded, so you don't really get to see him like the peak version of Ivy at Purdue. So I think he's a guy who's going to be in that conversation, in the 3-4 range.
Yeah, because he's going to have the ball. right? The other guys, in many cases, that's what it always gets to when it comes draft time. People decide, like, this guy's got the ball. The other guys have to have the ball passed to them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Right?
No, pretty much. Yeah.
And he's dynamic
on ball
guy.
versus softball guys. Yeah.
Yeah. What about the teams? You know, those are kind of the prospects. Obviously, Duke didn't win the thing. VTech won it.
Yes. Yes.
So what do you make of them? It's a hot team going into the tournament.
Yeah, they're not super talented. They have a really good coach. I think they all play to their strengths. I think they very rarely have bad players on the floor. They're kind of one of those teams that has, like 8-9 good players. They have shooting. Obviously, Hunter Couture played the game of his life in the tournament final. Career high 31 points, made his first 6 3-pointers. But the thing they do have is that their guys can pass. Like Keve Aluma is not super talented. Like he played in the G League, what do they call it? G League Elite Camp that they had before the combine last year. And it was, and even at that level, it was like, yeah, I don't know about this. But you watch him in the ACC, and the thing is, he can really pass. Like that's the one skill he definitely has. So a lot of times, I mean, he's still, big and can score and stuff, especially against most college players. And any kind of double or any kind of help or whatever, like he's definitely hitting the open guy. And then they knock down their shots.
How about Big East? Anybody you found that you really cared about there?
Yeah. So there's a couple guys in the Big East. I mean, Justin Lewis from Marquette, he's an interesting player. He's 6'7", pretty good shot, very powerful body. Could certainly play 4. Can be a little slow at times. You want to see a little more activity from him at the defensive end. Very good, like getting into short range pull-ups and turnarounds. Relies kind of a lot on bully ball, which worries you a little bit. These guys who you see just stiff-arming defenders, you kind of know at the pro level that's either going to be an offensive foul or they're just not going to get anywhere with that. So you wonder a little bit about that with him, but I'd say he's solidly in the 20 to 40 range. Trying to think of so I thought there were one or two other guys that I liked in the Big East, but Justin Lewis was definitely the main kind of guy to see in that conference.
You mentioned Jaden Ivey earlier, John. You said he's Ja-like. Granted, there's only one Ja Morant, but with Ivey, what did you call it? Blast off quickness. That first step that he has.
Yeah.
When it comes to scouting a guy like that with the lack of spacing that he does have versus the spacing you'd hope he has, or at least the talent around him that you'd hope he'd have in the NBA. What are the challenges in kind of projecting that out? Because we've seen guys like that in the past where like, oh, you give him NBA spacing, but then it doesn't change things. I was like, what is the challenge of projecting that?
I know, right? It's the NBA scouts, analysts, whatever, we're good at talking ourselves into guys who are maybe a little flawed sometimes, right? So I think with Ivey, he has that blast off first step, but I think he also he shows enough in terms of being able to do stuff with it, in terms of having the ability to make the pass or the skill to finish. He's become a pretty decent shooter too, which I think is important. So there's enough of a well-roundedness behind that you can find it a little more believable and projectable. And you can say, okay, we could put the ball in this guy's hands at least somewhat from the word go, and let him develop those skills further at the NBA level.
Any Villanovas or UConns?
UConn's entire team will be at Portsmouth. It's it's amazing.
Come on.
No, I was seriously joking with our draft guy, Sam.
It's not that far. I was at the UConn Seton Hall game, and it was just like everybody on both teams will be playing in Portsmouth. This is like you asked about Villanova. Yeah.
Colin Gillespie, I think, is going to be, he'll get a two-way, certainly, maybe go back half of the second round. I'd say Justin Moore is in the same category. Good, solid college players, maybe a little limited athletically. Gillespie, I'm not sure he's quite as explosive since the knee injury last year. So teams will want to do their research on that. He's a little older, obviously, too. The machine hates that. So,
I'm glad you brought up the machine, because you've got to give me somebody that, and I'm not going to make you reveal your matrix to everyone, but you have an awareness of all of these different mock drafts, and you have your machine, your algorithm. Give me a player that the algorithm, the machine, is much higher on than the NBA consensus.
Okay, so I haven't fully done all my machine work yet.
Just plug it in. Plug it into the matrix.
I'll start there. One guy I like, though, whose numbers did show up pretty well, is Ryan Rollins from Toledo.
Ryan Rollins.
Yeah.
Has he ever played a game on TV?
So he's going to play in the NIT tomorrow night.
Hey, I'll watch.
That'll be big time.
Ryan Rollins.
He's a guy I think he could sneak into the back end of the first round if he comes out.
Do any of these small schools in the tournament have any players on them that are that are pros?
David Roddy, Colorado State.
Yeah, well, is he a small enough school?
Yeah,
I mean, it's the Mountain West. Do we count? Yeah. So yeah,
people have not seen David Roddy.
Yeah.
No, definitely not. Definitely. The Mountain West was a good league this year. There's definitely some pros in that league. David Roddy is really unique because he does not look like a basketball player at all. He's 6'5.5" and 255 pounds, and it's and it's all in his chest. Okay,
that's awesome.
Isn't the NBA made for oddball players like that nowadays? Though, when you have,
a little bit, you look at him and you say okay, well maybe I could do some stuff switch wise with him that I couldn't do with some other people, because you're not really going to back him down, right? If you're a bigger player, you'd be able to shoot over him, but so is there some PJ Tucker kind of switchability with him? He's a pretty crafty player, good passer, has shot the ball a lot better this year. So there's definitely something interesting there. I'm excited. I'm going to Indy for the games on Thursday. So I'm going to see Colorado State, Michigan. So it'll be David Roddy and, watch him against a Big Ten school with some real size. They got Dickinson and Diabate at Michigan, who are 6'10" and 7 feet. So I think that'll be a really good test for him.
That'll be great. And I think for anybody tuning in, whether he's a NBA draft prospect, a first rounder, or late second or whatever, tuning in to watch a guy who's 6'5", 250, shoot off screens like he's Redick, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's just a good time.
Yeah,
I love watching David Roddy.
You know what's funny? I'm glad you guys brought up Colorado State. I was reading Norlander's thing this morning. Evidently, they've had massive travel issue.
Yeah,
I
was just seeing that too.
You see that? Norlander started tweeting about it, and I think that the attention that probably got, the NCAA ended up getting them a charter by this morning, because they had told them they weren't going to fly until 7 o'clock tonight, and they play one of the first games on Thursday. I mean, it's outrageous.
Yep.
This Colorado State, they were putting them really, at a big disadvantage.
Yeah.
Just because they hadn't planned their travel for them or something weird like that. But I'm down with a 6'5" guy with a barrel chest. 6'5", 255.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a nose tackle and he plays basketball.
Great beard, too.
Yeah.
Great beard. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right. Any other small school guys before we move on?
I think a lot of people want to see Baylor Shireman from South Dakota State against Providence. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people picking that as an upset, that they haven't lost a game since the beginning of December and all this stuff.
Yeah, Providence has got lucky as shit this year too. I could swear in this, right? So they're not really, their talent level isn't the talent level of a 4 seed. So he's going to be an interesting guy. A lot of pro scouts want to see that game just to see him play against a higher level of competition. They know he can really shoot. They just don't know how it's going to ramp up.